The A-Team continues on Sports Talk 790.
As we always do here on Sports Talk 790 on the A-Team, Adam Wexler and Adam Clanton, we talk Rams football. Well, we talk Rams football when they open the season against the Texans, and we will do that here with Sarah Barshop, ESPN reporter for the Rams. Also covered the Texans prior to making her way out to L.A., although a lot has changed here since then, Sarah, and we certainly appreciate the time. Certainly not much has changed for these two teams from an expectation standpoint. Matt Stafford's arrival there a handful of years ago put big expectations on the Rams. 3 playoff seasons in 4 years, a Super Bowl championship, but he seems like the only major question mark for this team, despite the fact that he will start the season and presumably is healthy. Do you believe? Do they believe? Does he believe he's maybe just one ill-placed hit away from being sidelined for a long time?
I think they believe that about any point in any football season, regardless of how someone's back feels. But there's no doubt that's not what you want your 37-year-old quarterback to be dealing with. So everyone I've talked to in the building says not a concern, but I think there will be a lot of people holding breath the first hit he takes on Sunday.
And, of course, how much are they going to miss Nick Caley, who's now here in Houston?
Yeah, I know Sean McVay has spoken so highly of him. When you're on the Sean McVay offensive staff, yes, you have a specific role, tight ends coach, taking a position group. But also there's a lot of trust, I think, and it goes both ways, but with Sean to these coaches and what kind of the responsibilities he entrusts them with and just their opinion as they talk it. So there have been a lot of people that, of course, have been asking about, him this week. And Sean has said, we'll miss him and I'll talk to him again after the game, and that, because right now it's kind of radio silence. So.
Well, you've got that going, I guess, if you want to say against you, if you're Matt Stafford, but also just his back. I know that all signs point to him being good to go, but what percentage would you put on a guy like that, especially going up against what everybody's been talking about on this side of town? Both these quarterbacks are going to be facing, intense pass rushes.
I think he is. I think he's at the point where he is ready to go. I don't hate to say 100% because you never want to be dealing with the injury, but I do think they believe that it is kind of past them right now as far as just being ready for the first snap. But like you said, it's a really good pass rush. Sean McVay was talking about the way that the Texans are able to rush with 4 and what a difference that makes when applying pressure. I was looking at the numbers yesterday. The Texans had, they led the league last year in completion percentage under pressure. So they know it's a tough defense. A couple players have said, especially on paper, it's one of the better defenses. And actually someone said that, and Sean said, not just on paper, but on film too. So they're prepared for what this could look like on Sunday.
What C.J. Stroud and the Texans offense will be up against was on full display at the end of the season for the Rams and certainly in the postseason, and specific to number 8, the defensive rookie of the year, Jared Verse. I'd like to point out once again why the sack statistic tells so little of a player's story. It's almost unfathomable he only had 4.5 sacks a year ago. How disruptive was he then, and how much better could he be now heading into year 2, especially with what appears to be a defensive coordinator that he will put him just about anywhere, it seems, along that defensive front.
Yeah, I think probably the better stat to show how effective he was last year was his pressure rate. And I think he led rookies by a huge margin, but then I think even amongst all players was ranked 4th or something. So he was very effective, especially like you said, later in the season. And this whole I've done this all week, been calling them the Texans. But this whole Rams defensive front improved by, if you look at what they looked like at the beginning of last season to that playoff game, grew in leaps and bounds, and I think that's what happens when you're under a first-year defensive coordinator. But talk about Jared Verse, I thought it was interesting. He said, we had all these accolades. I won Defensive Rookie of the Year, and he said he got the advice to go back and watch every single play from last season, the good and the bad, and he said he did that 3 or 4 times. So he walked away from that thing thinking, wow, I left so much on the field. And so if the defensive rookie of the year thinks that he left a lot on the field last year. I am very excited to see what this season looks like from this defensive front, but especially him.
Does it just come down to CJ's got all of these weapons? He's had some added this offseason, both via free agency and then, of course, the draft. And then, of course, Nico Collins is right at the top of that list. Does it just come down to him trying to offset maybe a lack of a fantastic offensive line by getting to those guys before these very pass rushers you talk about can get to him?
Yeah, I think so because, I mean, look, the Texans pass rush or the Rams pass rush strength of this team too. I'll be interested to see what the secondary looks like. They didn't add really during free agency. There was a lot of talk: is Jalen Ramsey going to be traded to the Rams? Could he improve that group? And they stuck with what they had. And so, talk about I think when you look at the improvement last year, yes, the passing defense looked better, but I think a lot of that was to do with the pass rush. And they know they're going to have to get after Stroud quickly on Sunday.
All right, let's help you out here, Sarah. Have you spent more years as the Rams reporter for ESPN or the Texans reporter for ESPN?
The Texans reporter for ESPN.
But not by much, right? You've been there how many years now in LA?
This is my 4th season.
And you were with the ESPN covering Houston for 5?
6.
Wow.
6, I think.
Okay, so it's certainly forgivable. I make my mistake with the Rams is I call them the St. Louis Rams if I'm not calling the Chargers the San Diego Chargers. So you got a trip to Hawaii out of this at least, right, for minicamp?
I did. Highly recommend any NFL owners listening. Highly recommend taking your team to minicamp in Maui or really anywhere like that. It was awesome.
Is that where you were, Maui?
And they have. Yeah, they were in Maui for, I think, 3 days. So it was a pretty cool setup.
Are you like me? You got off the airplane in Maui, because I've been there twice, and you're like, this is fake. This looks like a movie set.
Yeah, well, also I stepped off after living in this dry heat that is in L.A., and I said, I feel like I'm back in Houston. But, yeah, it was absolutely beautiful. And honestly, the coolest part was to see how many Puka Nacua fans there were there, what he's meant the Polynesian fans and how he's embraced that. I mean, I feel like every time I turned around in Maui, it was someone else in a Puka Nacua jersey. So that was really awesome to see.
Well, speaking of Puka, what kind of tandem do you think they will be this year? Nacua has been in a prominent role from the moment he was drafted and showed that he needed to be, and now they bring in Devontae Adams to pair with him, who's had, I don't think there's any reason on his back for any lack of production or success he might have had with the last couple of stops. But from my standpoint, I think this is deadly, potentially a very good combination. How do they see things there with those two?
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement specifically about that. It's probably what I'm most interested in seeing on Sunday is how Sean uses the two of them. Because you think back to Puka, his first year, a huge reason he was able to set the rookie record. Obviously, he played very well, but also Cooper Kupp wasn't there. He was hurt for start of the season, and it kind of it was Puka's offense a little bit. And then the second year, they both got hurt last year. They both missed significant time with injuries at the same time. And so if Puka and Devontae can stay healthy, I'm guessing it'll probably feel a little bit like just an embarrassment of riches for Sean McVay because he's been dealing with so many injuries since I have covered this team. And so obviously always a big if, but if the two of them can stay healthy, I think it'll be fun to watch what Sean McVay chooses to do with when you talk about like target share and do they play a lot of 11 personnel like they have in the past, or do they, after drafting a tight end with their first pick this year, go more 12? So it'll be interesting to see. I think we'll get the first glimpse, obviously, on Sunday, but maybe in the midway of the season, kind of how that shakes out, especially with those two receivers.
Talking to Sarah Barshop. She is the Rams reporter for ESPN, but of course did the same thing for the Texans 4 years ago now. Looking back at that time, which was obviously pre-CJ Stroud, The Texans finally get their franchise quarterback, they think. They get their franchise coach in D'Amico Ryans, and they get Will Anderson Jr., and this is all in the same offseason. And we've talked about this a lot. I wanted to get somebody's opinion from now outside the organization, especially in light of what we're going to see between these two teams the opening week of this year. Do you think that CJ got a bit of a bad rap in his sophomore campaign? It was such a great rookie season. He took a lot of criticism, and I don't necessarily think he's getting a lot of the preseason respect that he did a year prior. How much of that was him? How much of that do you think was the offensive line that was in front of him last year?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, and I don't mean this specifically national media, but just in general when you're talking about a national perspective on a player, so much of that is probably highlights or just what you see on social media, because the truth is how many people who are having these opinions aren't necessarily watching every snap of the game like you guys are. So I think, look, there's lots of quarterbacks who have been marred and been in, a bad situation because of their offensive line. I think this year will be a really big year for him. And I'm curious what it will look like. Excited to see it up close on Sunday. But to me, actually, the thing I've heard most, outside of it, is about D'Amico and just kind of his attitude and the toughness he's brought to that team. I'm excited to see what the defense, I think Stroud is obviously a big part of it, but I'm actually really excited to see kind of the effort that this defense plays with in person.
Certainly appreciate the respect you put on the reporters that are around the team the most. I definitely appreciate that, you for the Rams and us right here for the Texans. Looking forward to the game this weekend. Certainly appreciate the time you spent here with our listeners, and enjoy the game, enjoy the season, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you. Great to be on with you guys.
Good to have you on again, a regular visitor over the years to this program.